Welcome to Murray Montgomery's Lone Star Diary. Murray is a published author and syndicated newspaper columnist. He writes nonfiction stories about the Old West, most of them about cowboys and pioneers to the Lone Star State. Other true stories with an Old West flavor from all parts of America will also be included from time to time. Murray has been writing for some 20 years for the online magazine, Texas Escapes. So sit back and relax, and enjoy these true stories of old Texas. Now, here's Murray.
Hello everybody, I'm glad to be back with you on this next edition of Lone Star Diary. Haven't been on for a while, and so we need to get back to it. And we're going to do that today. And we'll do a little housekeeping before we start. I want you to know that all of these articles, or I'd say the majority of them, that are recorded here on the Lone Star Diary podcast can be seen at texasescapes.com. Go to texasescapes.com, look under columns, and find Lone Star Diary. And that is my column, and I've been writing for those folks for over 20 years. Now, on today's edition of Lone Star Diary, I want to tell you about a story that is about a pioneer woman in Texas. And this is no secondhand story or fictional story. This is a true story of a pioneer Texas woman. And I'm going to share that with you right now. Texas. It's a name that evokes great adventure, and to many people, the word itself represents a symbol of the struggle for liberty and human rights. Most folks associate the name with the likes of Bowie, Houston, Crockett, and others like them. All men. But what about the women? You know, back in those days, it was common saying that Texas was a heaven for men and dogs, but hell for a woman. And I can believe that. But what about the women? Those strong female pioneers. We don't often hear of their hardships and the things that they had to endure to produce this great land. An acquaintance of mine from years ago who worked with me at the Gonzales Enquirer newspaper in Gonzales, Texas, his name is Wallace Sarge Morgan, and he has researched his family back to the early days of Texas. And he was kind enough to share an interesting article with me that shows just one example of the hardships endured by those exceptional ladies of the Lone Star State. The article is from the book The Fergusons of Texas, written by Ouida Ferguson Nally. And Ouida is spelled O-U-I-D-A, and the last name, Nally, is spelled N-A-L-L-E. Now, if I'm pronouncing those names wrong, I sincerely apologize for that. Sarge Morgan is a direct descendant of Mitchell Garrison, who once served as a captain in Sam Houston's army. And this story is about an accident which occurred in the spring of 1855 and resulted in Garrison's death. But what impressed me the most about the article was what Garrison's wife and daughter experienced during this sad time. It seems that Garrison was breaking a wild horse and was thrown from the animal onto a picket fence. One piece of the fence went through the man's thigh, leaving him impaled on a wooden board. His wife, Elander, and some other folks removed him from the fence and attempted to attend his wound. The family did what they could to help Garrison, but the wound was too deep and it refused to heal. He needed a surgeon, and the nearest one was in San Antonio, which was 150 miles from the Garrison's Bell County home. Now the big problem was, who would take the man to have his wound treated? The Garrisons owned a store, and somebody had to run it. There were also small children who had to be tended. So the task fell upon Susan Nancy Garrison, who, according to the book, The Fergusons of Texas, was a grown young daughter. In those days, grown probably meant 15 to 20 years of age. So this story is about Susan Nancy Garrison and the trials and tribulations she went to get her father to the doctor in San Antonio. Prior to the accident, Mitchell Garrison had intended to go to Galveston to buy supplies for his store, and the family decided to send along a large freight wagon with 2 extra horses. The plan was for the girl to drive a buggy, which had the back seat removed to make a bed for her father. The freight wagon and its team were tied behind the buggy. Garrison figured that when he recovered from his wound, he would go on to Galveston and get the supplies needed for his store. Now try, if you will, to imagine this young woman managing this caravan of wagons and all the while watching for bandits and Indians. Her father had a rifle, but he was in no shape to fight. Susan Nancy carried a money belt around her waist, concealed by her full homespun skirt. The trip was made during a hot Texas summer, and she wore a bonnet to protect her from the broiling sun. The young woman fed and watered the horses when she made camp beside the road at night. She then fixed supper for her father before she finally fell asleep, exhausted, on sacks of feed in the back of the wagon. After more than 2 weeks of travel, the small caravan made its way into San Antonio. The young woman had done her job. Now her father would get the help he so desperately needed. Doctors treated Mitchell Garrison for several weeks before they decided that the leg must be amputated. The young woman couldn't make that decision for her father, but Garrison did, and he told the surgeons to get on with it because he needed to get to Galveston for those supplies. Sadly, Mitchell Garrison did not recover after his leg was amputated, and his young daughter, alone and without family, buried her father in San Antonio on August the 5th of 1855. Susan Nancy did not want to attempt the trip back home, so she sent a letter to her mother by a man who was traveling to Georgetown, which was about halfway to her home. After the letter arrived at Georgetown, folks passed it from farm to farm until it finally reached Mrs. Garrison. She immediately sent relatives to San Antonio to bring her daughter back to Bell County. Susan Nancy Garrison went on to marry John Fletcher Ferguson. She is the great-grandmother of Wallace Morgan, my acquaintance at the Gonzales Enquirer. 2 more of Morgan's ancestors, Miriam and James Ferguson, served as governors of Texas. This is just one account of the hardships faced by the women of Texas, and there are many, many more. And there's no doubt in my mind that today's Texas ladies inherited the enduring traits of their ancestors. So folks, that's the end of this edition of Lone Star Diary about Nancy Garrison Ferguson. She was a true Texas woman and a true pioneer of Texas. Just one of the many stories that are out there about our ancestors and what they went through to settle this wonderful place that we call Texas. So that's all for this time, folks. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back soon. Thanks for everything, and God bless Texas. Goodbye, everybody.